Most of you are reading her completely wrong. You think she's being difficult. You think she's acting weird. You think she's cold because she's not interested. Wrong. She's not unsettled because you lack value. She's unsettled because your presence is forcing her to confront something in herself she can't control. Your energy, your confidence, your self-possession, your restraint. It's putting a mirror in front of her insecurities. And the craziest part? You probably don't even realize the status you're carrying. But she feels it. That's why her behavior gets inconsistent. That's why her composure slips. That's why the signals start getting strange. So if you don't understand these 7 signs, you'll misread the room, doubt yourself, and chase women who were never turned off. They were intimidated. Let's end the confusion. Sign 1. The frozen response. The first sign is simple, but most men completely misread it. She freezes. Her words get stuck. Her sentence falls apart halfway through. She suddenly goes quiet, looks away, laughs nervously, or fumbles what she was about to say. And weak men read that as rejection. They think, she's being rude. They think, she's not feeling me. They think, I must have said something wrong. No, a lot of the time that reaction isn't rudeness. It's pressure. It's a physiological response to being around a man whose presence feels strong, grounded, and hard to read. When a woman is used to controlling the energy, staying composed, or dealing with men who instantly seek her approval, a man with real presence disrupts that rhythm. Now her nervous system has to respond. That freeze, that stumble, that awkward little shutdown. It's often what happens when attraction mixes with intimidation. She feels seen. She feels the weight of your calm. She feels that you're not performing for her, not chasing, not over-explaining, not trying to win her over. And that unsettles her, because high-status energy creates tension, not loud tension, not clown tension, quiet tension, the kind that makes her hyper-aware of herself. Now suddenly she's thinking about how she sounds, how she looks, whether she's saying the right thing, why you seem so unbothered, why your stillness is affecting her this much. That's why her mouth says one thing but her body says something else. So don't panic when she freezes. Don't rush in to fill the silence. Don't start tap dancing to make her comfortable. And definitely don't shrink yourself just because she lost her words. Hold your frame, because sometimes the silence you're scared of is the clearest sign your presence just hit harder than your words. Sign 2, the proxy check. The second sign is more subtle. She's not looking at you directly, but she keeps checking if her friends are. That matters, because when a woman is genuinely unaffected, she doesn't need a panel of witnesses. She doesn't need confirmation. She doesn't need to scan the room to see who else noticed you. But when your presence hits her, and she doesn't fully know how to handle it, she often avoids direct exposure. So instead of staring at you herself, she does it through other people. She looks at her friend. She watches her friend's reaction. She silently asks, without saying a word, "Are you seeing this too? Is it just me? Why is his presence so strong?" That's the proxy check. It's indirect attention. And indirect attention is still attention. A lot of men miss this because they only understand attraction when it looks obvious. They think interest has to be bold, direct, and easy to read. No. Sometimes interest shows up sideways. Sometimes she can't hold eye contact with you because that feels too exposing. So she reroutes the tension through her social circle. Now she's adjusting her hair while talking to her friend. Now she's pretending to be focused on the conversation next to her. Now she's glancing over just enough to keep tabs on where you are, but not enough to make herself feel vulnerable. And then the real tell? Her friends start looking too. Because energy moves through the group. If she feels something strong, the group often picks up on it. Now they're glancing. Now they're whispering. Now they're smiling in that way women do when one of them has clearly been affected by a man's presence. This is why you don't always read the woman. Sometimes you read the formation. Sometimes the signal isn't in her eyes. It's in the group behavior around her. So if she won't look at you directly but keeps checking whether her friends are looking at you, don't assume you're invisible. You're not being ignored. You're being monitored. And there's a difference. Because when a woman needs social confirmation before she engages, it usually means your presence has already disrupted her internal balance. She's not calm. She's managing. Sign 3. Performance anxiety. The third sign is where her composure starts turning into performance. She over-explains herself. She talks too much. She tries a little too hard to seem relaxed, funny, cool, or completely unbothered. And most men miss what they're actually looking at. They think, she's confident. They think, she talks like this with everybody. They think, she's just trying to show personality. Maybe. But sometimes that behavior is pressure leaking out sideways. Because when a woman feels overly aware of your presence, she can start managing how she's being perceived in real time. Now, she's not just existing, she's performing. She's explaining things nobody asked her to explain. She's justifying small choices. She's filling gaps with extra words. She's trying to control the image. Why? Because your presence made her self-conscious, not insecure in the weak sense. Self-conscious in the human sense. She suddenly cares a little too much about how she's landing. She wants to look smooth. She wants to look unaffected. She wants to look like she's totally in control. But the more she tries to look unbothered, the more obvious it becomes that she is. That's the tell. Real calm doesn't need to announce itself. Real ease doesn't overperform. So when she starts doing too much, talking faster, explaining longer, forcing the cool girl vibe, acting extra casual in a way that feels slightly unnatural, you may be watching attraction collide with intimidation. She feels your steadiness. She feels that you're not rushing to impress her. She feels that you're grounded enough to let silence breathe. And now she starts compensating. Because calm male presence has a way of exposing who is actually comfortable and who is trying to look comfortable. That doesn't mean she dislikes you. A lot of the time, it means the opposite. It means your presence raised the stakes in her mind. So don't interrupt the performance. Don't rescue her from it. And don't start over-explaining yourself in return. Let her feel the contrast. Because the man who stays centered while she's trying to manage her image becomes even more powerful in that moment. She's trying to look unbothered. You actually are. Sign 4. The physical barrier. The fourth sign is where confusion destroys a lot of men's judgment. She creates distance. She leans back. She steps away slightly. She puts something between you and her. A chair, a table, her bag, her friend. Some kind of barrier. And the average man immediately takes it personally. He thinks, she's pulling away. He thinks, she wants space because she's not into me. He thinks distance always means disinterest. Not always. Sometimes distance is not rejection. Sometimes distance is regulation, because when a woman feels too much too fast, closeness can become loud to her nervous system. Not loud in sound, loud in sensation. Your eye contact feels intense. Your calm feels heavy. Your presence feels harder to ignore than she expected, and instead of melting into that moment, she instinctively creates a little space so she can manage what she's feeling. That's the part most men don't understand. Women don't only move away from what they dislike, they also move away from what overwhelms them, especially if they're trying to stay composed. So she builds a physical buffer. Not because she wants you gone, but because being too close is making her hyper-aware of herself. Now she can hear her own heartbeat. Now she's thinking about her body language. Now your proximity is doing more to her internally than she wants to reveal externally. So she regulates by creating structure. A little more distance, a little less exposure, a little more room to regain control. And if you're smart, you don't chase that space. That's where weak men fail. The second she pulls back, they lean in harder. They talk more. They force more warmth. They try to close the gap. Wrong move. Because when a woman creates space to calm her system down, chasing her into that space only confirms that you don't understand pressure. High-value presence doesn't panic at distance. It reads it. It respects it. It stays grounded enough to know that sometimes the barrier is not there to shut you out. It's there because your presence got in too deep too fast. So don't always read space as rejection. Sometimes she's not escaping you. She's trying to handle you. Sign 5, sudden hostility. The fifth sign is the one that throws most men completely off balance. She gets sharp. The energy changes, her tone hardens, she throws a little jab, a slick comment, a dismissive look, a cold response that feels slightly out of nowhere. And weak men collapse right there. They get reactive, they get defensive, they start explaining themselves, or worse, they start chasing her approval even harder. But what they don't understand is this. Sometimes that sudden hostility is not the absence of attraction. It's the defense mechanism. It's what happens when a woman feels affected by you, doesn't like how affected she feels, and tries to regain control by knocking you off center. This is the mean girl defense. Not because she's evil, not because she's some villain, but because people test what unsettles them. And if your presence feels strong, calm, hard to read, and emotionally ungraspable, one of the fastest ways for her to regulate that discomfort is to provoke you. Now she wants to see, can I shake him? Can I make him chase? Can I make him overreact? Can I pull him out of that calm and make him prove himself? That's the test. Because the moment you become reactive, she feels power again. The moment you start defending your value drops. The moment you break frame, the mystery is gone. So understand what's happening here. Her little jab is not always random. Her coldness is not always clarity. Sometimes it's pressure trying to find an exit. She wants to know whether your confidence is real or just an act that disappears the second she pushes on it. And this is where high-status men separate themselves from boys. A boy reacts to the sting. A man reads the motive. He doesn't get emotional over one sharp comment. He doesn't fold because her tone changed. He doesn't start performing just because she got a little difficult. He stays steady, not passive, not weak, steady. Because when a woman throws that mean girl energy at you and you remain composed, you force her to confront something deeper. You're not as easy to control as the men she's used to, and that unsettles her even more. So don't always panic when the energy turns sharp. Sometimes hostility is not her final answer. Sometimes it's the last defense she throws up before she has to admit your presence is affecting her. Sign 6, mirroring failures. The sixth sign is subtle, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. She starts trying to match your vibe, but the timing is off. You lean back, and a second later, she does it. You say something dry, and she tries to throw that same energy back. But it lands a little forced. You go quiet, and she suddenly goes quiet too, but not naturally. You smile slightly, and she copies it just a beat too late. That's a mirroring failure. And it matters, because people mirror what they're drawn to, what they respect, or what they're trying to get in sync with. But when a woman is too self-aware, too affected, or too nervous about getting it wrong, the mirroring stops being fluid. Now it becomes calculated. Not in a manipulative way, in a pressured way. She's trying to find your rhythm while her nervous system is already too activated, so instead of naturally flowing with the moment, she starts studying it. She's watching how you speak, how long you pause, how much emotion you show, how relaxed you seem, and she's trying to match that energy without making it obvious. But because she's thinking too much, the imitation comes out delayed, slightly awkward, or just a little off. That's the tell. She's not fully in her body anymore. She's managing the interaction from her head. And when someone is in their head, timing breaks. That's why her laugh comes a second late. That's why her tone suddenly shifts after you shift yours. That's why she tries to play it cool in the same way you are, but it feels like she's borrowing confidence instead of actually sitting in her own. Most men won't catch this. They'll just think the interaction feels a bit weird. But the real reason it feels weird is because she's trying to calibrate herself around you in real time. Your energy set the frame. Now she's trying to step into it, and when she's too focused on not messing it up, the mirror cracks. So don't obsess over perfect flow. Sometimes imperfect flow tells you more than smooth conversation ever could, because when her timing is off, her vibe feels half-copied, and her reactions seem just slightly delayed. You may be watching a woman who is far more affected than she wants to appear. She's not just talking to you, she's trying to align with you, and she's struggling because your presence has already made the moment heavier than she expected. Sign 7. The lingering gaze. The 7th sign happens after the moment is over, not while you're talking, not while the energy is live. After. You turn your back, you walk away, the interaction ends, and that's when she finally looks. This is the lingering gaze, and it reveals more than most men realize, because during the interaction she may have been managing herself, managing her face, managing her tone, managing the tension your presence created in her nervous system. But once the pressure of direct contact is gone, something changes. Now she can look without being exposed. Now she can study you without feeling seen. Now she can let the interest surface because the risk is lower. That's why some women won't fully look at you when you're in front of them, but the second you turn away, their eyes lock in. Because distance gives them safety. Your back gives them cover, and in that small window, the truth leaks out. She watches how you move. She watches whether other people notice you. She watches with the kind of attention she was too guarded to give you face to face. That matters. Because the post-interaction gaze is often more honest than the interaction itself. In the moment, ego is involved. Self-protection is involved. Image management is involved. But after the moment, what she does when she thinks you can't see her tells you what the moment actually did to her. This is why high-value men don't obsess over forcing eye contact in real time. They understand that not all attraction performs on command. Sometimes the strongest signal comes after you've already withdrawn your attention, after you stop looking, after you stop speaking, after you leave her with the energy instead of chasing a reaction. And that's the deeper lesson here. A man with real presence doesn't beg for visible proof in the moment. He understands that impact often shows up in the aftershock. So if she barely looked at you while you were there, but the second you turned your back, her eyes followed you, don't dismiss that. She didn't look when it was easy to fake. She looked when it felt safe to feel. Now here's the shift. Because if you see these signs and still respond like the average guy, none of this helps you. You'll still ruin the moment. You'll still misread the energy. You'll still talk yourself out of the very position that was making her react in the first place. So, understand this. Status isn't about what you say. It's about what you don't have to prove. That's the lesson. A high-status man does not panic when the energy gets strange. He doesn't start performing because she froze. He doesn't lean in because she pulled back. He doesn't overtalk because she got awkward. He doesn't crumble because she got sharp. He stays in frame. Because the moment you start reacting to her reaction, you hand your center away. And that's what most men do. She gets quiet, so they start filling silence. She gets weird, so they start trying to smooth it over. She gets hostile, so they either fold or fight. She gets distant, so they chase. That is low-level behavior. Why? Because it tells her your state is now dependent on hers. And the whole reason she was affected by you in the first place was because you looked like a man whose state belonged to himself. So don't destroy that. This is where silent confidence comes in. That's the move. Silent confidence means you notice everything, but you react to almost nothing. You observe the weirdness without trying to fix it. You notice the freeze. You notice the over-explaining. You notice the sudden coldness. You notice the distance. You notice the post-interaction stare. But you don't rush in and start managing it. You let it breathe. Because your job is not to make her comfortable at the cost of your frame. Your job is to remain the constant in the room. That's masculine stability. That's status. That's presence. Not loud talking, not fake bravado, not trying to dominate every second. Stillness, restraint, control. The man who can sit in strange energy without shrinking, chasing, or overcorrecting immediately becomes more powerful than the men who need constant reassurance. So the next time she acts weird around you, don't ask yourself, how do I make this smoother? Ask yourself, can I stay solid without needing this moment to go my way? That's the real test, because women are used to men who break rhythm the second tension appears. Very few are used to a man who can hold tension without becoming needy, awkward, or reactive. That man stands out. That man feels rare. That man doesn't need to force status, because his nervous system already proves it. So remember, don't fix it. Don't lean in. Don't explain more. Don't chase clarity in the moment. Observe. Stay grounded. Let her reveal where she's really at. Because when your confidence is real, you don't need to control the room. You just stop letting the room control you. Now the question is, which of these signs have you seen lately? Be honest. Because most guys completely miss sign number 5. She gets sharp, she throws a jab, her energy changes, and they instantly assume they're being rejected. No, a lot of the time they're being tested, and the only reason they fail the test is because they don't know how to hold their frame under pressure. So I want you to pay attention this week. Watch the freeze, watch the proxy check, watch the over-explaining, watch the distance, watch the hostility, watch the mirroring failures, watch the lingering gaze after the moment ends, and most importantly, watch yourself. Can you stay calm when the energy shifts? Can you observe without reacting? Can you stop chasing and start becoming? Drop a comment below and tell me which sign you've experienced most, and if you've felt that strange tension before, that moment where a woman's behavior got weird, sharp, quiet, or inconsistent, the stronger you stood, then you already know this message was for you. Stop chasing, start becoming. Alpha Energy. Subscribe if you're tired of being average.